History is full of cruel kings. But what happens when absolute power turns inward? Not against enemies. Not against rebels. But against his own blood? Tonight, we enter the shadowed halls of ancient Persia to uncover one of the most disturbing allegations ever whispered about a ruler. This is not a story of war. This is not a story of conquest. This is the story of King Xerxes I. And the accusation that what he did to his own daughter was worse than death itself. In the 5th century BCE, Xerxes ruled the largest empire the world had ever seen. From the Indus Valley to the Mediterranean Sea, his word was law. To his people, he was the shadow of God on earth. To his enemies, a force of nature. But absolute power does something dangerous to the human mind. Inside the Persian royal court, there were no witnesses, no equals, no one who could say no. And royal women, wives, sisters, daughters, were not free citizens. They were political assets in Achaemenid Persia. Royal daughters existed for 3 purposes: political marriages, dynastic alliances, producing heirs. Their bodies, futures, and identities belonged to the king. Greek historians like Herodotus recorded rumors of forbidden relationships inside Persian palaces. Stories whispered by servants, eunuchs, and exiles. And among those rumors, one name appears again and again. Xerxes. No Persian records survive describing this directly. But Greek sources, hostile yet detailed, suggest something chilling. That Xerxes crossed a line so forbidden that even ancient historians struggled to describe it clearly. Not love. Not romance. But total domination. The reduction of a royal daughter into something less than human. Whether through forced confinement, political erasure, or violations that stripped her of all future life. The punishment was not execution. It was living without identity. In the ancient world, this was worse than death. Death and suffering. But what Xerxes is accused of doing created social death. A royal daughter who was removed from public memory, denied marriage, erased from lineage, locked inside the palace forever. She would live but never exist. No children. No name. No future. Just breath. In ancient royal culture, this was considered a fate worse than execution. Whether these stories are literal truth or political exaggeration, they reveal something undeniable. When a man holds unchecked power, morality collapses. Xerxes did not fear law. He did not fear gods. He did not fear history. And when kings are above judgment, even family becomes expendable. This is not just an ancient scandal. It is a warning. Throughout history, from emperors to dictators, the pattern repeats. Absolute power destroys boundaries and turns people into objects. Even daughters' history may never fully prove what happened inside Xerxes' palace. But the silence itself speaks volumes. Because when power controls truth, the most horrifying crimes are the ones that leave no record. This was King Xerxes. And if the accusations are even partly true, what he did to his own daughter was not mercy. From the outside, the Persian royal palace looked like paradise. Golden walls, endless gardens, flowing fountains. But for royal women, it was a perfectly controlled cage. They could not leave. They could not choose. They could not speak publicly. Every servant reported upward. Every movement was watched. Every secret ended at the throne. So if something horrific happened inside those walls, there was no escape. And no witness who could survive telling the truth. In modern thinking, we ask, why didn't the queen stop him? Why didn't the court rebel? But in Xerxes' world, the king was the law. Disobedience meant death. Even royal blood offered no protection. To accuse the king was to erase your entire family. So silence became survival. And silence allowed cruelty to continue. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most Persian records were state-controlled. What embarrassed the crown was never written or destroyed. That's why much of what we know comes from Greek historians. Outsiders, enemies, observers. Were they biased? Yes. Were they exaggerating? Possibly. But across different accounts, a consistent pattern appears. Xerxes is portrayed as a ruler whose personal desires overruled every moral boundary. And when multiple hostile sources repeat similar accusations, historians don't dismiss them. They investigate the pattern of behavior. Execution was public. It created martyrs. It provoked sympathy. So tyrants often chose something far worse. Erasure. A person who was removed from records, forbidden to marry, locked away for life, spoken of no more. To the ancient world, this was the ultimate punishment. You lived, but your existence meant nothing. This is what many historians believe happened to the unnamed royal daughter linked to Xerxes. Power changes people, but absolute power destroys restraint entirely. Xerxes inherited an empire at its peak and grew paranoid about control. Rebellion haunted him. Disrespect enraged him. Disobedience terrified him. Inside that mindset, even family became potential threats. Or possessions to dominate. Notice something chilling. We know the names of Xerxes' generals, his wives, his sons, but not this daughter. That absence may be intentional, because naming her would mean admitting something unforgivable happened. Sometimes, history doesn't hide crimes with lies. It hides them with emptiness, whether every detail is true or not. This story survives for one reason. It warns us what happens when power exists without accountability. When rulers are untouchable, the most vulnerable suffer first, often in silence. This was not just a Persian tragedy. It is a human pattern. And it repeats again and again. Whenever no one can say no, history may never tell us her name. It may never confirm every detail. But the silence surrounding her fate is louder than any confession. Because some crimes are not remembered through words. They are remembered through what history refuses to say.